Got a pickup truck with a dog box, slam full of hounds who don't know when to stop. Rambo's his name, he's quick on his feet, hell on game. Got a little chip in the back of the pack. She ain't real fast, but she's true on the track. She's got to drive, and she's got the guts, and that's why she's gonna run with us. It's in the blood in your veins, you can't be tamed. It's fast down through your family. It's a pack of dogs coming through the pines. Lights of fire in a young boy's eyes. Just turn around, it sounds just right. It's dog time. Find a good old dog is like striking gold. One of a kind that can't be sold.
Hello, I'm Clayton Stark. In today's episode of the podcast, it's from Autumn Oaks with Chris Powell, Josh Michaelis, and Ben Sheets. I wasn't present for most of it in the beginning because I was on the road getting there. It was a great conversation with them, and Autumn Oaks was a great time as always, so I hope you enjoy this podcast.
You know, we're looking to improve on the foundations that have been laid by guys like Chris and others, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've run it by you guys, and I've talked to Jason about it as well. Jason knows what I'm talking about. But, you know, we got a lot of work to do on it, so I don't want to get too in-depth yet. But, you know, we're coming
It's
up.
like a summit. It's like a nuclear summit. Nobody wants to lay all their cards on the table.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we can't reveal all the secrets.
Yeah, I say we're not hiding it from each other. We're just hiding it from the listeners, which I don't know if it's a good ploy or not. But, you know, I don't want to announce anything until, you know, we are 100% ready. But just keep your eye out, because all these guys that are in this podcast are going to be involved in this.
Yeah.
You know, dog media of all kinds. Yeah.
I don't know if I can partner up with Michaelis again. You already broke up once?
Yeah, I already left a bad taste in his mouth once.
No, the thing about media and the whole reason, you know, Houndsman XP was started is because there was no 21st century style media, and I'm excited about Full Cry coming back. I think it's going to be awesome, and I think our crowd is a traditional crowd that likes having that print media in their hands and things that they can pass down. But at the time that Houndsman XP was started, there was nobody in the space telling our story. And what happens when you don't tell your story is other people try to tell it for you, and they get it wrong, or they miss key points. And the worst thing that happens is the anti-hunting community was coming out and telling our story for us. Yeah. And it was affecting policymakers that were making the laws that we have to hunt by, and things that were just going south. And it's pretty exciting, really, because now, you know, 4 years after we launched the Houndsman XP podcast, you know, I was talking to Alan Gingrich about it. There's a whole section of a building set up here for people to produce podcasts about hounds. And so we're getting the message out and making appearances on podcasts like Peterson's Hunting. I did that a few weeks ago. The largest hunting magazine organization in the world has a podcast, and you get to go on there and I tell the story of the houndsman and represent us and tell our own story. And the National Deer Association, you know, it's no secret. Josh and I have done several podcasts about the relationships between deer hunters and houndsmen, and we've fired our shots, they've fired their shots, and everything. But at the end of the day, we got to figure out how to work together.
Exactly.
And being able to build something, and I guess what I'm trying to say is the rest of the hunting public and the hunting industry and community is starting to recognize the values that we bring to the table for wildlife management, for financial reasons, you know, all of it together. It's exciting.
No, and like OSG, which I'm pretty sure owns Peterson's, they just launched their Hound magazine, so you know, they're realizing that, oh, this is a crowd we should be recognizing and bringing to the table. So
yeah, I mean, Meat Eater didn't do anything with hounds before we started, we as a community started bringing this kind of information out, and they saw the value of it. So now, they're trying to tap into it and tell the story. So
those larger media organizations, and a lot of them were pro hound. They wanted to be with the houndsman, but they didn't want to take that gamble, and they didn't want to dip their toes in that water because they was worried about what would happen.
Yeah.
And as guys like Chris and others, they brought these wonderful houndsmen up to the forefront. Companies like that and large organizations seen that, well, this was well received. This was well done. These guys are not just hill folk that are coming down from the hills and raiding our deer hunting ground and stuff like that. And the science behind and the biology behind how beneficial we are for the actual wildlife and stuff like that came to the forefront, and then it allowed those bigger companies with more eyeballs and more ears to take advantage of that and see that, we can delve into this space a little bit safely without having it blow back on us, because these are our brothers, these are outdoorsmen just like us, and it was just such a benefit. I think, what do you think, Powell, since maybe 2016, 17, where it just kind of started, the wheels started turning in some of these bigger companies, and they were following, leads from Houndsman XP and others, and, they got into the space a little bit.
Yeah, you talk about companies like Onyx.
Yeah.
That see the value of being able to reach into this community. And there's been others, with, Joy Dog Food's been in business for a long time, but Joy Dog Food and the Fuel by Joy podcast, and, it's just, even W. W, they spread their influence across the U.S. 5 years ago, you never saw a W T-shirt at Autumn Oaks. You just didn't, because
I've
it was
seen quite a few.
I have too.
Yep.
And so they were more of a Western houndsman type company, and Great Lakes company. They always had a stronghold there. And I'm not going to try to speak for W, but what I'm saying is now you're starting to see that logo show up in Virginia and Richmond, Indiana.
Yeah.
So I think it could be beneficial for all of us.
And all of it is just, and that's where I feel like we really differ in the media scene, and like, we don't have bills to pay. We don't have sponsors. We can kind of do whatever we want. Until occasionally we'll get the phone call to back her down a little bit, but
we've all got those calls.
Yeah, right. Weren't we just talking about that, John?
Yeah, we were.
It's like, so it's a little different, but just to see, from marketing standpoint, it's been really good for us too, because it puts us in people's minds. And, I think of this new Hound magazine that just hit newsstands, like in Merlin, Oregon. You can look it up. It is not real big. I walked down to the local Rays and it's sitting on the shelf. Yeah. And for me, it was funny because a lot of people were, it was the elephant in the room, like with us buying Full Cry and what we thought of it. And I said, that's a fantastic thing for us, because there's a company that sees a value in what we do enough that they just sold a pile of advertising. And they don't gamble on that kind of an expense. So it's like, we are finally hitting the front end. Like Chris is saying, like, this is our chance to like kind of join forces and write our own narrative, like take back what's been taken and just keep putting that best foot forward month in, month out. Heck, like guys like Chris, you're doing 3 podcasts a week now?
Yeah, we drop 3 shows a week.
So you got 3. We've got 2 over on W. You got Fueled by Joy. You got Ben. You got, how many of just this immediate group of guys we know? Like, it's crazy to think about where we were, heck, 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. 3 years ago, probably 3 podcasts.
I don't know.
Now there's probably 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's different than what people think it is. It's not. We're all sitting here and we know how much work it takes to produce a podcast. Not only work, but it takes finances to do it too. And, I'm fortunate because, the state pays me not to come to work anymore, which is a good deal for both of us. But, with retirement. But it still takes above and beyond that kind of income to be able to do it and do it effectively. And getting back to what you said, Jason, we're sitting – the worst thing that the hound hunting community can do is to disengage or to back away from this opportunity we have in the media world to – I mean, now's the time. We're sitting right there. The promised land is in front of us. We just got to find people that are willing to follow us into it,
And I'll go out on a limb, and I bet a lot of you guys probably feel the same way. I think 90% of us started off looking at something just to get involved and to help pay for some dog food or some gas.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into this, like, I don't know if we wanted it
it's
or
still
not, but
paying
like
for that,
we are the voices. Yeah, I know. It's still not, right? Like, we're how many years in and we're still paying our own.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think, like, out of just guys like all of us sitting here wanting to get involved and do something on a bigger level. Now it's like, holy crap, that fast track.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's key right there. I mean, it's never been about, building an empire or I'm telling you right now that it's not a money maker. Not a huge,
Wait a minute, Chris. You're not getting rich off of Houndsman XP?
No.
I seen him get out of a Bentley earlier. I don't know what he's talking about.
I told the driver to drop me off a couple blocks and let me walk in like I walked here. But.
Yeah, let me rent a
let me get on my golf cart.
99 Civic, so I can pull it in here,
So people don't think I'm highfalutin.
That's right.
But we're sitting on the verge of being able to break into this thing, and if we can all stay on the same message, and present houndsmen in a way that is principle based and adds value and things like that, then we're going to get there.
Exactly. And as more podcasts come out and everything, and you get more people, no matter what, you're always going to get some characters and bad actors, and that's kind of also what I want to talk about is just how can we try to all stay on the same path and stick to that same message, and try our best to make sure houndsmen are presented in a good light and not bring those bad actors out.
I don't think that's a problem for the guys that are around here, that are guys that are at this table right now. On this
I
podcast.
agree.
That's not. And I can only speak for the Eastern coon hunter, and that's what I try to do, because even though I give Powell a hard time, I don't know nothing about bear hunting. I don't know nothing about lion dogs.
That's exactly right.
But on the coon hunter side, and I love them. They're my people. I've been raised by them and with them since I was 5 years old. I've been coming to these events for as long as I can remember. It's a community and a culture that I wanted to showcase the right way. That's why I started doing this with Chris years ago when we started The Truth. I wasn't money or fame or any of that stuff. I just wanted to be able to.
You were mad because somebody else dropped a podcast that misrepresented.
Yeah, I've talked to Jason about that.
Yeah, that misrepresented your lifestyle, and so you called me. It's like, man, I want to do a podcast, and it's like, well, let's do it, and we turned it into The Truth.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been wildly
you're
successful.
welcome.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah. You're my.
You're welcome.
I've been thinking Chris this whole time, and it was you guys that helped me along.
See?
But I love them, but they don't have a lot of foresight as a community. They don't. They're these guys that are down in Oklahoma right now competing for $60,000, $70,000 or whatever they're hunting for right now. They're not worried about 5 years from now. They're worried about winning this late round.
Yeah.
They're worried about the next dog that they have to get to keep doing what they love to do. These guys that are here at this event that come down to just one event a year like Autumn Oaks, they're just worried about feeding their families and their kids and coming down and pleasure hunting for fun, and they get to come out here one time as a family and enjoy themselves, and that is all great. That's all great. Mm-hmm. But somebody, and I don't want to seem like I'm, the Messiah or anything, but someone has to help them along on the outside. Someone has to speak for them. Someone has to show people what they actually are. But some of those same people that you're trying to help don't understand that what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they think that we're doing it for fame, or you think that we're doing it just so people can see or hear our voice, and it couldn't be farther from the opposite. And so that's coming along. That's getting better. I get here to this event, and it's really invigorating because everybody's shaking your hand. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing. Thanks for everything, and that helps. But then you also get the emails that I'm an elitist, and I don't do this right.
You and Jed
I don't
big
do
money hunts.
Yeah, and I just want to grab them and be like, I'm trying to help you, idiot. And so it's a fine line.
I'm from Fueled by Joy podcast, and I'm here to help.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like the government.
Yep.
You might want to be leery, but I just want to scream at them that I'm trying to help them, and some of them haven't realized it yet. We're just trying to help them along. Times are changing, and it's a fine line between trying to preserve the culture and the community and the things that we are, and move into the 21st century finally.
There's a reason why deer hunting media, that's been probably around longer than any other form of hunting media, and that's helped build their industry. I mean, deer hunting is an industry in the United States. But it also
Thanks a lot, Bill Jordan.
But it's also turned into having a lot of influence with people that are making the rules, the laws, and it brings a lot of money and everything like that. But even the early days of deer hunting media weren't good, but they kept at it. Yeah. And now they're to the point where you've got shows like Meat Eater and that are just rocking the charts because they stuck with it and they stayed on message and they tried to represent deer hunting in a positive way. And houndsmen need to start celebrating the positive successes of ethical houndsmen, people that want to do things right, that have principle in their life. Stop celebrating the outlaws and the cheaters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The good thing about hound sports is we're always 5 years behind. There's always a blueprint right there. You look at what Rogan's been doing for 20 years.
Exactly.
And here we are, and you look at what the outdoor media has done for fishing and whitetail hunting and even western big game, and all we got to do is follow that blueprint. And, they've laid it all out for us. We just got to do it the right way, like they did. It's easier for us than it was the pioneers and some of the other sports. It's got to be.
Yeah. There was no blueprint.
I think part of one of the hardest things across our community, though, you're talking to the coon hunters, and we talk western big game hunters a lot of times, and it's hard because coon hunting, Chris, I think you've said this before. It's one of those things where people aren't as attached to a coon because they it's legitimate crop damage. It's all these things, right? Coon hunting is a massive, I compare it to deer hunting now, on a way smaller scale. But these guys aren't giving away trucks and $100,000 purses if they're not making money. That's a business standpoint.
Right.
So, there's support behind that community. I think, Josh, you got a leg up as long as everybody can come together, or a select few, like you're saying, to represent that. There's some clout behind that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of the Western guys can get hung up. It's we're fighting hard to keep every bit of what we have. And then there's guys out there, having these hunts, and it's not a battle.
Yeah.
But I got to remind them, it's a battle nationwide. We're all battling the same thing. That is some of our best PR is those programs and those youth events and the St. Jude benefit hunt.
Yes.
That, you guys are great PR for us as a sport, for sure.
Well, it also, Jason, it's a deal where, we've been fighting hard, but at some point you've got to figure out how to fight smart.
Yeah.
And I'm a historian, so I look at, what we did in the American Revolution with a smaller force, less trained, we were victorious. And, this, when you're talking about the anti-hunting community and what they're trying to do in the West, it is a war. And people have got to get off the sidelines and
so we're
stop
the Taliban now.
No, we're actually Rogers Rangers. But it's time for
you guys have fought those battles though too. Right. I mean, people don't want to acknowledge that, and even within the coon hunting community, tethering laws, kennel limit restrictions.
When you talk about coon hunters, there's no glaring threat like there is in Colorado right now for a coon hunter in Indiana. Right. You know, because you got farmers, you got homeowners, you got fish and wildlife managers, like they're saying, we got too many raccoons. So the coon hunters are slower to engage on that front, whereas the houndsmen in Colorado right now, they're going to be in a fight for their life in 2024 with a ballot initiative out there.
Yep.
And I just got back from Florence, Colorado at the Colorado Predator Hunters and Trappers Association conference, and they are trying to put on a full court press, you know, to try to stand up against this. To give people in the East, this is a slide that they showed that just floored me. There's 5.8 million people in the state of Colorado, population-wise. 5.2 million of those people live on the the front range around Denver, Boulder, and those places. There's no way they can outvote them. So you've got to figure out a way to sway the opinions. And we can do that with positive media, with good media.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that's what we're all trying to do, and trying to fight the bad press that we do get from a lot of those outside influences, and you know, those anti-hunters that, like you said, they try to write our story, and so we're trying to fight back.
But it's hard to break a united front, and that's just it. I mean, everybody in this room, all differences and paths aside, like we've all kind of stood by each other and help lift each other up, because we all know that this is good for the sport. And I can say I'm happy to still be working with all you guys.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, to make that difference, because they'll just start chipping us away one at a time, like they do the voting population, you know?
No, it's hard for folks to grasp things that aren't directly affecting them right now, you know, and me and you talked about this too, Jason. We're just folks that just want to live in the hills with our dogs and come down about every 3 or 4 months for groceries like they did in the old days. You know, get me some coffee and some flour, and I'm going to go back and turn this pup loose.
Right.
And to get those people involved into something that's happening in Colorado, or that's happening in Washington State, or
what's
Oregon.
happening in Colorado should be just as important to a person turning a hound loose in Indiana or Missouri or anywhere else as it is to that guy turning that hound loose, because they're not going to stop there. Once they accomplish what they're doing there, they're going to move to the next thing. And people are like, it'll never happen. Yeah, that was Colorado. I don't hunt up mountain lions anyway. We keep a hound, and so the way they try to defeat it here is with tethering laws, kennel bills, bring your dog in when it's below 50 degrees and above 70 degrees. You know, animal welfare bills is what they're trying to push on us here. So they're going to regulate us out of business if we don't make a stand and come together. We got to back the guy in Colorado, the New Mexico houndsman. They have a different story and a different past, but they've got a common thread, and that's their houndsman. And what they do is special to them, and it will affect us, and it is affecting us.
Oh, yeah. And on the flip side, while we're fighting, you know, to keep things, you know, there's also the flip side where we're fighting to gain some things. You know, Montana had a big win just recently with the getting bear hunting, and you know, South Dakota's trying to open some more up for lion hunting. So we got to fight that fight too. So
the deer hunters in their sport and others have been so good about never being satisfied with where they're at. You know, they never slowed down. They were always. You look at a Delta Waterfowl Banquet down in Texas or something like that, you know, and you just look at these huge organizations that do so much for conservation and stuff, but they never were satisfied. You know, they kept fighting, and even when they thought they've made it, you know, they were still, you know, going guns blazing all the time, and we got to do the same thing, and it is hard, especially when you're Powell's age and you're old. You know, you just
hey, at least, but like you said, at least he's retired and he doesn't have to work a day job and do all this.
And I can still beat you leg wrestling.
Yeah, probably. I've learned I'm the most terrible leg wrestler east of the Mississippi. Anyway.
That's right. No doubt. Well, you got west too, because Seth's west of the Mississippi.
Yeah. I guess. So I guess I'm
you're
United
out.
States. I'm not even top 10.
Nope. It's just a deal where you've got to. There's a couple things that from my perspective, that are key to our future. We've got to be able to talk about the values that we add to the hunting community, not only the hunting community, but to the non-hunting community. If you enjoy, we as a community every houndsman needs to be able to, when somebody stops him and says, "What's that box in the back of your truck, and why are you doing what you're doing?" And they've got to be able to articulate what values they add to society.
Yeah.
Just like this weekend right here. It's a $12 million shot in the arm for the community of Richmond, Indiana.
Right.
They're not in any hurry to get rid of Autumn Oaks.
Yeah.
Restaurants are full, hotels are full,
Yeah.
gas stations are selling stuff. It's just rocking. So we've got to be able to explain that and showcase that in a way that people understand. And then on the wildlife side, we've got to be able to say, these are the values that we add. When there's a lion study done in the Rocky Mountains, not only does it help wildlife managers understand what lions populations are like, but they find the bones, and from a lion kill of a deer, and they take that back and they make decisions for the health of the mule deer populations. So there's a lot of crossover, but people aren't talking about that stuff. Yeah. So when you get the person in the Subaru that likes to go to Rocky Mountain National Park, and they've got to know. Huh?
So don't be knocking Subarus.
Hey, I got one, man. It's got so my Subaru's got all kinds of hunting stickers and stuff on the back of it, and my business partner's like, "Well, you're just trying to piss everybody off," But we've got to be able to tell that story and tell those people there's an elk there because I'm a hunter and I helped put it here for you to come out and look at today.
Yeah. So, looking towards the future, how can we better do this across all these platforms? Like I said, podcast, YouTube. Maybe going a little more mainstream also, and, with magazines and stuff. So what do you guys think as far as what we should be doing, and how do we stay united, and how do we keep this in the forefront?
You just got here, Clayton. What do you think?
Well, it's nice to be here, Clayton.
Welcome to the party, bro.
Yeah. I would say kind of just what all of us have been doing is just we don't really have to do anything fancy or do anything different. Just show what we do for what it is, because I've told a lot of people, if there's anyone out there that actually likes dogs and being around dogs, if they just see the relationship that we have with our families and our kids and the dogs that we have, that they're at bare minimum they're going to be open to it, if not fall in love with it if they get a chance to go. So I think it's a lot of just exposure and the right exposure, because up until recently, if you did not have a family member that did it, or if you didn't have a family member that would get like the magazines, you might not have known what it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cult thing. It's a regional thing where out west there are more bear hunters and lion hunters and stuff, because that's what they have here. Yeah. And I've told people before, if we had bear where I live, I'd bear hunt too. Yeah. If I can hunt it with a dog, I would do it. So I think it comes down to just being good people and raising good kids and having good families and just showing who we are. I think is just represent us for what we are. And there's always going to be people that don't like it, but those people they're just bitter people. And there's some people you can't reach, but I think the majority of people that everyone likes dogs. Most people like dogs, and they see our dogs get taken care of a lot better than a lot of people do in this country, to be honest.
I don't like any of my dogs.
well, you'll have that sometimes. There's special ones.
Yeah, that's right. But I think Clayton touched on it too, and I agree. And we need to get content like we're doing for the everyman, for the every woman, for that suburban house mom that's got a Labradoodle that she thinks that she dresses up for her birthday parties and stuff. Those folks need to be exposed to what we actually are and not what they think we are. Right. And to do that, we need mainstream media, just like these guys are doing, like Clayton and Chris and Ben and Jason and me. And I think all these guys here have done a really good job of representing the houndsman in the correct way. And we all have talked about this. There's so much more we can do. We can do more, and we're working on it.
There's a solid leadership principle that I always rely on, and I used it when I was a supervisor. But you got to show people what a good job looks like. Yep. And you've got to step out there, and everybody here wants to be able to hunt 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. But what's that going to take? Yeah. So it's up to us as media to showcase the people that are doing it right, and the people that are honorable and principle driven, and showcase that and show people what a good job looks like.
And those people are entertaining.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like that can entertain
Yes.
someone who doesn't even know what we're doing out
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Well, for example, like look at Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
Look what they did for duck
Yeah.
hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made it huge.
Yeah.
Right.
And why? Because they were entertaining.
Because they were characters. It was a
Yep.
character-driven format. Even because I remember the first time, and I've been lucky enough to hang out with Phil and Jason Sy, all of them, a few times. Great people. What you see on that show is usually what you're going to get. Maybe they were putting on a show for me too. But before they were big, Phil used to go around and do revivals.
Right.
You know, they would book him. They booked him at a church at Danville, Iowa. And I think they were on Duckmen 4 on the VHS.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I went to get, because I love waterfowl hunting. I still do. And I would go get their VHS. And they weren't big. Nobody knew who they were yet. You know, just the duck hunting community, the hardcore duck hunters knew what they were. And I would just to hang out with them and to see them and to be around them, it's no different than going over here to Hoop and Tater's trailer and listening to them for a little bit. It's no different than going here and talking to Heath and Chris and Chip Kozier's in there. Don't even, he's got a Boykin Spaniel, you know, but it's fun, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And if we highlight them in the ways that they are, you know, you don't have to sugarcoat it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to edit it. You just highlight the good people, and 90% of us are good people, you know, me excluded. But
Like I'm elitist.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I got my nose in the air.
Hey, everybody serves as an example, even if it's a bad example.
That's right.
Josh.
That's right. I'm a good example of what not to do.
Jeez.
Well, we got a great opportunity now. I mean, like you were saying, Clayton, it's about family and kids and morals and values. And I mean, to me, that directly correlates with, you know, all the whole Duck Dynasty scene and what they've done on with their Unashamed podcast and like all of that. It's just, those are real people. And you think about around the table, all joking aside, Josh, like we're all real people with a calling to do something that's bigger.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the world right now is craving that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy out there, and people are craving stability and family and stuff like that because a lot of people aren't exposed to it. You know, they don't get the same opportunities that we have.
Look at what who is it? Oliver Anthony?
Yeah.
The guy that wrote the song. I mean, he's an overnight sensation, #1 iTunes.
We just need to get Rogan to make one post about us.
Seriously.
We're there. We're there.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that far off either, because
don't
some
either.
of the guys out west he bow hunts with,
We
know
look at-
they
we
hunt
look
with
at Clay
dogs.
Newcomb, who's friends of ours.
Yes.
that, you know, we can.
He was on Rogan,
you know,
yeah.
he was on Rogan. You know, we're making those strides.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, but
Right.
it's a slow process, and we just got to stay very vigilant.
Yep.
and we got to stay consistent. I think that's the biggest thing that we can all do. And it's easy for those of us sitting at this table.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I deal
it's
with it. I mean, that's,
I don't know that it
go
is
ahead.
sometimes, because, you know, it is, this business is driven by downloads and, you know, how we perform for sponsorship. That's what's got us the Onyx type recognition is
Enjoy dog food.
Enjoy dog food, yeah. Enjoy dog food.
NW Hunting Supply. Come on.
We're all
keep
plugged.
naming
Stark
them,
Outdoors.
keep
Stark
naming
Outdoors.
Yeah, Stark Outdoors. But I'm just saying, you know, you can't sell and get the brand recognition if nobody's going to tune in. That's just the way business works.
Yeah.
So we have to pay attention to that. But the thing for me is, I know what podcasts perform well for me and which ones don't. I look at those numbers all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to sell out. We've got, just for the sake of downloads and ranks and Chartable and all that goofy stuff, you know, I'm going to stay on message, because I believe that we've got to speak the truth. We've got to provide the entertainment, but we can't back off of
1,000 people listening to something valuable that's going to help the sport is more important than 500,000 people listening to something that's detrimental.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know, we just have to. And Chris does such a good job of fighting that fight, and I don't do as good a job of it. I like to do the podcast that I like, and I'm a selfish guy when it comes to that. I'm not going to lie. You know,
I'm there with you. I get it.
I want things that interest me. You know, if it's interesting to me, then I put it on the podcast, and that's what I do. And I should do that. But then I look over, I'm like, well, Chris is already doing that. He's got my back. We'll just leave it to Powell, you know, because it's something that we all have to consider, you know, that how are we being perceived constantly? You know, when I show up out here and even how I put my clothes on in the morning. If I'm going to be out here in front of everybody, which it doesn't look like it today, but a lot of times, it makes a difference.
Sure.
How you appear to the public and how you act and how you react is so important.
Yep.
Well, now we have so many platforms at like this confluence in time. Like before, I mean, Full Cry was the original, 1939. Like that's what we had. And then there was, you move in, you got F&T Tailgate Adventures. When I first got into hounds, like out here on the West Coast, that was my only contact.
Yeah.
Like that was my connection. And then you move on to like Facebook taking its thing, and now we've got the podcast, which I feel like was the first big boom.
Yeah.
Like that, we're still feeling the ripple effect, and we're still riding that wave and seeing the benefits it can have for our sport. But now it's like, Clayton, we got YouTube. We've got the podcast with all of us. We've got print media. We've got mainstream Netflix, like exposure to a degree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's literally all these things are right now. And I feel like there's a group of us that really feel the gravity of that and what we can do together. And then there's the rest of the people that are going to hopefully never see a hiccup.
Yep.
And the reason for that is we're all working behind the scenes with a consistent message and putting those things forward in repetition. Every form of media at this point, we're looking at a potential influence.
Look at our podcast guests lately. You got Shockey over here on Houndsman XP. You got Giannis Patelis over here on the W. We're really making strides into other areas where we're getting just everyone's like, and like I mentioned, Mr. Bear Grease over on the Rogan podcast, Brent Reeves,
Clay's been on our podcast.
Brent Reeves doing his thing
Brent
now.
Reeves.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there, and we are riding a wave right now.
I'm telling you, man, I think we're right on the crest of the hill, and we can see it. We just gotta be consistent and follow through. There's got to be follow through.
Yeah.
And do what we're all doing right now. I mean, I hope this is an example to the whole hound hunting community.
Yep.
Like everybody at this table is here for a reason, and it's you listening, or you reading, or you watching. Like that is the reason we're all here, and that's what we all need to do.
And the media has brought us a lot of gifts too. If it wasn't for me starting a YouTube channel and making a stupid video that Powell liked, he never would have called me and put me on Houndsman XP. I never would have got the job with Joy Dog Food. I never would have went into this next venture that I'm going into. All this stuff has benefited us as well. You look at the downloads that Clayton's getting. You look at the listenership that Ben has and what W's doing with their stretch. This media, it has helped us. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've benefited from it.
Down.
But also we've been very good as a community about doing it the right way, too.
Yeah. I think that goes to the type of people that are doing it. Obviously, you're not going to set out, if your goal is just to make money, you're probably not going to be filming or doing podcasts for
get into bird dogs.
Coon dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will promise you one thing. Nobody here on this podcast gives care about money.
Yeah.
I still drive.
We burn it.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's got to be a passion.
Yep.
And you look at the founding fathers, they risked life, limb, business, fortunes, all that to ensure that we had this country that we live in today. And I look at this group of, guys and innovators sitting in this podcast right now, I look at them the same way, because I can tell you, if I was making the bank, I wouldn't be driving a 2007 Tundra with 200,000 miles on it,
Yep.
So, and I'd have better dogs.
I think we all would.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like, odd man out. I was wishing I could have been there to see it all. But I mean, like now there's been the media booth and you guys obviously not new at Oaks. What's the feedback like from like general population? Are you guys getting a lot of interaction from listeners and feedback and stuff like that?
I get very little negative feedback when I'm in public ever. At this hunt, it's always positive. I'll get maybe a guy side eyes me or something walking by, but those guys, they only talk on the internet. If it ain't on Facebook, they ain't gonna say nothing to me.
Right.
But when we're at these events, it's fantastic. And I also get feedback from people that are not houndsmen, that are, you know, I never knew this, or I can't believe you guys are hunting for $100,000, and, you know, this is crazy. I've got bird dogs, and I want to do this. You know, I don't know why we can't do that. And so it's overwhelmingly positive, and it does overwhelm me sometimes, because the last thing I want is noticed, and I think all these guys are the same way. And,
right.
You know, but it is good feedback, and I think we are doing a good job as a community. And I mean, yeah, we're all going to get some negative about an opinion that I have, because I'm one of my bad habits is that I do voice those. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get a little bit of negative feedback, but as a whole, and I think Chris and Clayton and Ben are going to say the same thing, it's been pretty positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime I go to an event like this, I have never gotten any sort of negative reaction whatsoever.
Well, as soon as we're done here, I'll give you
some names and numbers.
No, I'll give you my opinion, Clayton. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's been.
I got some handwritten letters that are complaints lately.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I like those. Those are fantastic. Nobody does that anymore.
Dude, let me tell you, they're still out there.
Oh,
I get a
love
bunch of them.
That's because we're not in print media.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we're still in the Stone
Plus,
Age.
I've been writing your name on public restroom walls with your number and address.
If someone has a complaint about my podcast or my opinion or my live feed or something like that, sit down, get some really nice
Email
stationery,
Chris.
get a quill pen, inkwell, whole works, write it out, and I promise you then I will pay attention. I'm like, that guy, he may have a point.
You really pay attention when it's hieroglyphics, man. Like, I had to remember people still use shorthand.
Oh, jeez. That is fantastic. I would love to have any kind of negative especially. I would love to have some negative feedback written out like that. That would be impressive. I would be impressed. I would put them on the podcast the next week.
There you go. Everybody write your letter and send it to.
Send it to, what's your address, pal?
Stick man, stick dog, cave wall drawings. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, guys, I know we're all busy here, so I don't want to hold us up. I really appreciate all you guys sitting down.
Yeah.
I think this has been a great conversation. I think we're moving in the right direction. I think, like Chris said, we're at the crest of that hill, and we just need to kind of keep our foot on the gas and make sure we follow through. So
definitely.
No doubt. Thank you guys all very much.
Thanks to all you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for being there and representing all of us. Like, this is a big deal. I know there's a huge turnout from not just those of us sitting here, but the community we've surrounded ourselves with, and it's awesome to see the showings there at Oak. So thanks all you guys for all you're doing.
Yeah.